Good evening and welcome to the Curriculum Evaluation Committee meeting, November 14th, 2022. It is 6 p.m. and we are in the Nashua High School North Boardroom. Members in attendance are Ms. Reagan Lamphere, Mr. Neil Claffey.
Here.
And sorry, I'm here. Jessica Brown, I'm here, and we have a quorum. We also have in attendance Dr. Kimberly Sarfty and Mr. Matt Posca, and we have several representatives here for presentations. So if we'd like to begin, our first presentation is from the Nashua Public Library. Take it away.
Thank you. My name is Ashley Lykanshin, and I'm the teen librarian over at the Nashua Public Library. And I was asked to come and just talk very briefly about the summer reading partnership that we have with the Nashua School District. So that's what I will do. So these are just a couple of images. I know they're kind of hard to see with the lights from one of our children's programs, Ocean in a Jar, and then one of our last one. Yep, there you go, kid. Perfect. One of our teen programs, our Deep Sea Glow Party. Both were really well attended and followed our theme of Oceans of Possibilities. So two of the main goals of our summer reading program are to engage the youth of Nashua from birth through high school in literacy activities throughout the summer months to help reduce the summer slide and hopefully to embrace and support reading as a positive habit in their lives. Another goal of ours is to create opportunities for all children, teens, and their families to participate in a variety of events and activities within our community that promote positive social connections, creativity, and learning. So some of the highlights from this past summer reading program of 2022. This was one of the first summers that we were able to offer mostly or all in-person programming since the pandemic. We, before that, were offering mostly virtual or grab-and-go kits. All 17 Nashua schools had students that participated in the program and read for a total of just over 675,000 minutes. Our library staff created summer reading promotional videos to share with all of the NSD schools. And in addition to that, we were able to visit in person and give presentations to the 3 middle schools and 5 of the elementary schools, including 3 of the Title I schools. We were able to offer 14 pop-up libraries throughout the community at locations such as PAL, the Arlington Street Community Center, Parks and Recreation, Summer Fun, Kickoff Event, the Fairy Tale Festival, and some Nashua pools. We made a joint effort with the school media specialists of all the schools in the elementary, middle, and high schools to develop the suggested summer reading lists. We made thematic story times at all the Title I preschools, and we partnered with the Boys and Girls Club to create a teen artwork button that we used as one of the summer reading incentives. This here, I know that that's very small on that screen. These are just 2 of the graphs from our statistics from summer. The first one on the left is readers by school, and then the other one is readers by grade. The top 3 performing schools were Bicentennial Elementary, Elm Street Middle School, and Charlotte Ave Elementary. And elementary-aged students made up the largest number of readers from this past summer. Although all of the schools were represented by readers, only 232 Nashua School District students were active participants in the Summer Reading Challenge. This number accounts for just 2.3% of the total student population in Nashua. I'll go back. So as we look forward to this coming summer, next year, we are excited to work closely with the district's administration and the school librarians to continue to promote the summer reading program and to hopefully engage a larger percentage of Nashua students. Some of our initial ideas to do that include in-person school visits at every NSD school, improved marketing based on feedback from district administration and NSD families, and hosting pop-up libraries in neighborhoods throughout Nashua all summer long. And last, a big thank you to all of our partners that continue to help make the summer reading program a success. In addition to the Nashua School District, we have Title I preschool programs, Boys and Girls Club, PAL, and the Nashua Parks and Recreation, among others, of course. That's that.
Any questions from the committee?
Yeah, I was just wondering, how does the summer reading program participation level compare to previous years?
That's a great question. So we're not quite back to pre-pandemic numbers that we were seeing in like 2017, 2018, or even 2019, but we are increasing every year. So it did definitely dip down in 2020, as to be expected, but each year since then, we've been growing back up. So we're just about back to where we were in like 2019.
Oh, that's great, thank
So
you.
yes.
So I noticed on your chart there with specific schools, it looked like Elm Street had a really fantastic number of students participating, and there's a few other spikes in there. When you guys did your interviews and things like that, what were the things that you're going to target to try to get the other schools up to those levels?
I should have put on here which schools we actually did in-person presentations for, because I'm wondering if there's some sort of connection between the ones that we were able to visit in person and the number of registrants that we actually got as a result of being able to go into those classrooms in those schools and talk to them directly, as opposed to sending just a digital video, which gave basically the same information, but maybe wasn't quite as exciting as having one of us go visit.
That's great. Thanks that's a good observation. So thanks. Anyone else have anything to add? All right. Thank you very much for being here. We
Thank
really
you.
appreciate you putting that to program.
Yes, thanks for having me.
All right. So next up, we are going to have folks from our high school science department.
Can we just, let's just,
Just bringing up the next presentation. So we have several this evening.
acted.
It's always nice because Dr. Sarfty sends hyperlinks right in the notes. So if anybody's ever looking for those presentations, you can just click on the hyperlink in the agenda.
Hi, thank you. I'm Cheryl Miesig from Nashua High School North. I'm the head teacher for science
And I am Matt Froment. I am the head teacher for science in Nashua High School South.
And we're going to give you some proposed changes to the high school science program as we are meeting the expectations for the Next Gen Science standards. And I have a quote here from the Next Gen Science. And I just want to emphasize how it talks about communication, collaboration, inquiry, problem solving, and flexibility. And as we move through this presentation, we're really focused on the skills that our graduates will have as they leave both North and South.
Yes.
And just to kind of bring us back to our vision, our mission, and our values, to summarize, we're really trying to be a model for excellence, educate the whole child, and prepare them as they move on from our school district. Recently, we've been talking about a portrait of a learner, and similar themes here as well, kind of skipping down toward the bottom where it says students actively participate in authentic learning experiences while practicing the skills and habits of mind. This is very much in line with the Next Gen Science standards. It's kind of a whole new way of looking at science and the science process and the skills associated with it. So in terms of how we hope to improve our science achievement and high quality instruction for all of our students, there's really two main steps here. We've been working with the Next Gen Science standards, but really aligning our curriculum officially with the standards and updating our course sequence, and then also increasing our required credits from 2 to 3 to increase those science and engineering practices in our students. Just a really quick overview. With the Next Gen Science standards, there's 3 core ideas. The disciplinary core ideas are what you would typically think of your content standards. The cross-cutting concepts are those big ideas that go across all areas of science. And then the science engineering practices are really the skills that we're hoping our students have by learning in this way. A quick snapshot of where we're at right now. This is what you would see in our program of studies. So currently, all students take physical science and biology, and those are required for graduation, and they're prerequisites for all other science classes. There are ways for students to kind of double up or get to the electives more quickly. And we've had some students that will take physical science on VLAX or complete the portfolio in order to kind of move ahead in the process. We've also had changes with the middle school science progression, and this year is the year where 8th grade has started their new curriculum, where there is a significant change in that they have a lot more physics standards versus earth science. And it is the middle school, but currently our students go to physical science, which is also a similar content from their perspective. And we currently also have the ELL science, which some students take prior to physical science, and it is a graduation credit, but doesn't go towards a science credit. When looking at how to move forward with NGSS at the high school level, these are the 3 models that are recommended, although I'll note that even, as you can see in the quote at the top, they are a starting point. It's not mandated that you have to do any of these 3 in exactly this way. The first one is essentially integrated sciences, which are what they're doing at the middle school. There's a lot of value in integrated science. At the high school level, at the state level, we have different certifications in life science, chemistry, physical science. Unlike other areas, it's not the most practical pathway for us. Another one would be earth science, life science, and physical science. Again, we hope to increase our earth science options, but we currently don't have a solid earth science course, so that would also be maybe not the most viable option. And then the modified science domains works within the biology, chemistry, and physics model, utilizing those standards with the earth science intertwined. And so that's the one that we're really building from. I'll briefly show you this one, but we have a better vision of the pathways coming up. But essentially what we'd like to move forward towards is all students starting with biology, which would be a common course for all students to take, and then open up the options from there. So the biology, chemistry, and physics, if you're using this presentation at home, link to the modified domain standards, and you can see what that looks like from the NGSS. So we would utilize that, but also create a physical science class that is chemistry, physics, and earth science, a third of each, so that would modify our current physical science course quite a bit as well. And students would have a choice of physical science, chemistry, or physics as the current physical science graduation requirement that the state requires. Okay, this is a little hard to see. So at the top here, it's the same progression that I was trying to show, but we really wanted to emphasize that they're not tracks. You could go and make changes along the way. So for example, if a student takes biology and then chooses physical science, I really liked chemistry, I think I'll take chemistry now, or I'd really like to take more physics. It's kind of more of a web than a track. So while students that might be interested in going to college for STEM may be more likely to take the biology, chemistry, physics, there are really a lot of options. Some of our hopes are that more of our students will get to some of our really engaging electives. Many of our electives right now are offered primarily at the honors level. We maybe have foundations or extensions offered less frequently because of the numbers, and that more of our students are taking forensics and zoology and anatomy and physiology, and there's a list there. I can open it up at the end. I have a more clear view. The middle chart just shows the prerequisites, which are really not a huge change. Typically, a lot of our classes for electives right now have biology and physical sciences a prerequisite. It's just clarifying now that you might have biology and physical science or chemistry or physics or AP physics and so on. Okay, so I think I touched upon quite a few of these, but just to clarify, this would align better with our current middle school progression. Biology would a common experience for all students coming into the high school, and then from there, determine where they'd like to go. It also would meet the state requirement. Students would have much more choice in their physical science requirement based on their interests and their future goals. they really all would have access to the next gen science performance expectation. It's just which pathway would they prefer to take. And there'd be more opportunities for students to take the engaging electives, and to emphasize that all of those electives utilize the science and engineering practices. And 10 years from now, the science and engineering practices are really what are the skills that are going to help them to be successful. In terms of increasing them from 2 to 3 credits, all of the 3 models were 3 course systems, that they are recommended from NGSS. And we had some discussion about would biology, chemistry, physics be a match for all of our students? And we think likely not, okay? But increasing the science and engineering practices for all of our students could be beneficial for everyone.
Absolutely.
Here's some of our testing data over the past couple of years. It's a little bit tricky to see because we've had a lot of students opt out of our science tests, and I hope that that's something we can change in the future, but there is room for improvement there. Just also really quickly, U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, you can see STEM occupations in terms of percent employment change. There's a higher projection for the number of opportunities and significant pay opportunities as well. This is a snapshot of our current graduation requirements. And I just wanted to point out here, we currently have physical science and biological science, and all of the other core areas, English has 4, math has 3 plus a math experience, social studies has 3. And if students meet all of those requirements, there's still a lot of room for 12.5 electives for the standard diploma or 5.5 for the core. So by adding a 3rd science, there's still a lot of flexibility for electives. This data is from the class of 2021. We found at both North and South science department courses, almost 80% of our students are already taking 3 or more sciences. So it's really reaching out to the 20% that aren't and helping them find a match for them to also get those science and engineering practices. There's also an increase over the past 10, 15 years of more and more schools in New Hampshire requiring 3 and even 4 sciences. And as we did some research in New Hampshire, the great thing about New Hampshire is that everyone's a little bit different. And so there are some that have 3 or 4. We've seen every model you could imagine, and we really tried to think about what would be best for Nashua based on what we learned from other schools. So just to kind of summarize, the biological science would be biology, physical science, there would be many more options available, and then the science experience. To clarify the science experience, we were thinking, how can we reach all of our students and really make sure that this is not something that holds anyone back? And so we chose the term science experience and really focusing on those science and engineering practices to also open it up to career and technical programs that also use science and engineering practices. So the data that was about 80% of our students taking 3 or more science classes, that was based on the science department courses. That did not include the list of CT classes here as well, so we can only imagine that it would be even higher. So really encouraging students to take more STEM. So the goal would be to change this graduation requirement for the class of 2027. Okay, so that would be our incoming freshmen next year. For this year, we would like to update the course sequence that we shared. Part of that would be that both physical science and biology do not have any prerequisites, so it's going to take us a couple years to kind of get over that bubble. We can't offer biology to all of the freshmen and sophomores next year, so we'll come up with a specific way to guide our 8th graders and our 8th grade guidance counselors into what might be best for them for the next year and continue to grow from there. We have been working last February and over the summer on our curriculum documents. We continue to work on those. There's still much more work to be done there. And that's our first primary, our biology, physical science, chemistry, and physics, and then focusing on the documents for the electives. We do hope, and we have some teachers that are really excited to start new science electives as well. Meteorology is something that's come up. We also have classes like contemporary issues in science that just haven't run as much recently, and we're hoping to see more there. I just wanted to show you, this will be easier to see. So here you can see the flow chart a little bit better. and then, I'm sorry, I'm trying to do two things at once. And then the electives are really, in terms of prerequisites, are not any major changes. It's just aligning with the change for physical science. Anatomy and physiology are kind of alone here because it is helpful to have some chemistry, where some of these others, the teachers that are teaching them and everything, physics would be fine. And then this is already what it is in terms of the prerequisites. And then here's just the summary of the potential science experience credits as well. I'm sure you have questions. I feel like I was speaking really quickly.
You did a fine job.
Thank you. So please, any questions?
Anyone have any questions? I do. All right, I have a whole sheet, so go ahead.
So I took chemistry in high school, and I did very badly at it. And even the idea of physics makes me like break out in hives. So I'm just wondering, I mean, like, the kids are going to have other options besides those two scary classes, right?
Right, yes. I'll take that.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah, so basically, as an incoming freshman, eventually, you would take biology. From there, in order to meet the state graduation requirements and hopefully Nashua graduation requirements, you would be open to take physical science. Okay. And then you could take maybe contemporary issues in science, and there you are. Or I'm already taking an engineering CTE class. There's my third one. And that's that. So there's a lot more flexibility and openness, I think, in this model as opposed to what we currently have.
Yeah, it sounds great. Thanks.
Can I just want to, my question I think relates to Ms. Lampier. So somebody with 2 science credits and who takes, say, health occupations,
Yep.
that would fulfill the 3 credit requirement?
Yes, that's correct.
So so you're proposing, I think, assuming this goes to the full board, that you're proposing to change the science experience graduation requirement.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, we're adding that, an extra science experience, to hopefully build upon the science and engineering practices. Those are built into all of those courses right there. I mean, our nursing programs and some of our other biotech and things like that ties right into NGSS and what we're trying to do. So why not include those experiences in there and open up some students that maybe wouldn't have done that and say, oh, gee, I really liked that CAD class. That was awesome. And, they maybe look into that as a future for themselves, things like that.
If I could just add to that, I think as we talked about at our last meeting, we spoke about the portrait of a graduate and the opportunity to create multiple pathways and flexibility for our students. So this actually ties into that work that we're currently planning on, and they've gone the next step. And I think that slide that showed the data that about 80% of our students are already there. So really, this is targeting those 20%, and that's where it's given themselves some work over the next 2 years, a couple of years, I should say, to expand some of those elective opportunities to entice the students to appeal to that. But again, looking at those CTE courses that are offered, again, that's another opportunity for students to experience something else. And I think that it's really the timing is interesting to show about the career pathways and the job opportunities that are available for our students by heading down to a STEM path and what that could offer them.
Do you want me to wait for you to?
Go ahead.
And then math added 1 credit requirement, but that's within the experience umbrella, and you're proposing the same thing?
Yes, that would be, yes.
Okay. Are you worried at all about filling positions should this requirement be adopted?
I can respond to that one. So there is going to be a bit of a shift, and while I anticipate, for example, maybe the college-bound student who doesn't like physics may take the physical science course, and many of our students will take the physical science course. Right now, physical science is required for everyone, so I think we will have a slight dip in physical science numbers, and already we've been talking to some of those teachers about would you be interested in teaching the contemporary issues or meteorology and things along those lines. And again, it's going to be when we already have 80% of our students taking 3 or more. I don't anticipate that this is going to be, a huge number difference. And the 80% also didn't include the CTE courses.
Right.
2 more. And then, again, assuming this passes, could you let the rest of the board know or see the fact that many of these courses are available to at least students who are not planning to go to college? Because I know you have electives, extension, foundation, plus these, so maybe there might be a concern that you're catering to the 2/3 that are going to college, but that's not the case.
No, I think we want to give those kids that are not going to college the opportunity to take some of those extra classes, or maybe give that 140 some odd kids that had only taken 2 science classes with the data from last year, to kind of maybe give them that little bit of a push to open up their eyes. Oh, this is great. Even if it's just like a contemporary issues in science or something like that, just to talk about current events of the day. Lord knows we have enough in science right now, right, with all sorts of stuff. So it's to cater to those kids, because the college track kids, they're going to take their biology, they're going to take their chem, they're going to take their physics.
Yep.
That's what they do, okay? And they have been for years. So we want to really kind of open it up for the other kids. So.
And my last question, I tried to find out whether local colleges, universities require 3 credits. I saw Plymouth requires 3, Plymouth State requires 3, UNH only 2.
I don't know off the top of my
Yeah,
head.
No, I just thought that was strange.
Yeah, I thought it
That
was
would be
generally
strange,
3,
yeah.
but
Typically, especially if you're going into a STEM field as a major, you would typically want to see 3. They want to see the big 3, the bio, the chem, the physics, typically.
Yeah, I mean, one of the reasons why I'm definitely going to vote yes is Massachusetts has a core recommendation for all of its high schools. They recommend 3, so it's wise to do.
No, thanks. I think that everything that you guys have said so far is actually right on my list of items here. The 3 sciences, asking for 3 credits, I think is good. And I'm wondering if maybe UNH, since that's like the state minimum, if that's why they aligned with that, I don't know, but I agree. I think 3 is better. I think it brings up the level of rigor across the board for all our classes. I'm glad we've added a 3rd one for math. Since we're already talking about that requirement, and Mr. Posca, you may know this, with the new merit system that we're going to be shifting to get the maximum level of achievement recognition for like the magna cum laude or summa cum laude, is that 4 credits is actually what they're requiring in specific in science?
I don't think we've ironed out all those details about what that entails, but certainly that will be part of the discussion.
Okay, because the bottom line is, I think this gives those kids more reasons to take more sciences, more rigorous schedule across the board. You already answered a question, my question about whether the CTE programs, biotech, veterinary, CAD, which I think is awesome and underutilized, and I would like to see it full every semester. I'm glad that those are transferring over. The prerequisites, so I just need a kind of clarification on the chart. So the only prerequisite for everything is biology, will be biology, and then chemistry and physical science are interchangeable moving forward.
So all the way to the left, all of those courses in the square to the left would require biology and a physical science. So biology and physical science, chemistry, physics, or AP physics.
So any of those.
Any
will
of
count as
those.
the prerequisites for all of the other electives.
Yep.
But you could also take 2 of those, 3 of those
Oh,
choices.
sure.
Yep.
Yeah. And then the only ones that were a little bit more specific is with anatomy and physiology, it is very helpful to have some chemistry. So that's why it's specifically physical science or chemistry, because physical science does have partially chemistry. And then biology and chemistry are already prerequisites for forensic science, AP biology and AP chemistry, so that's not a change.
Okay. And since science and math and STEM are so related, are there any of these classes that require a certain level of math proficiency before you can take them? And is that a struggle? This is a 2-part question. Is that a struggle with getting kids scheduled when they have, you have to wait a semester for Algebra 2 or whatever it is?
Yeah, so currently, the ones that have the asterisks, chemistry, physics, AP physics, do have a math requirement. At this point, with these changes, we are planning on keeping them as they are. I think moving forward, that's something that maybe we could re-look at, to see how this is. But For chemistry, for example, I know teachers have found that there really is a correlation between the math level and chemistry. So for a student who maybe is not in as high a level math, for example, if they choose to take biology and then maybe physical science because their math isn't as strong, they could still take chemistry or physics as a junior or senior if they choose to. So there are a lot of options for pathways.
All right, well, good. I'm glad that you're giving that many options. So this is kind of along what Mr. Claffey was asking earlier. So with the increased need for biology, physical science, openings in people's schedules, is there anything that we can do as a board to support that? I mean, you said that you're going to work with your current staff to see if they want to teach other electives, but is it a situation, I know that actually the math and science teachers are in critical need right now, that we can do alternative certifications and that kind of thing under, emergency orders. But is there something that we can do as a board or as a committee to help facilitate that? Do you need more bodies?
At this point, so we're lucky in that biology teachers are the easier ones to come by. Mm-hmm. A lot of our physical science teachers are actually already certified in biology. So making the transition to having kind of a bubble of biology is doable. And so then as we kind of go past that bubble, we'll have to see kind of how this unfolds, but there's a lot of our science teachers teach electives, are open to teaching electives, so I really think it's going to be more of a shift of responsibilities, and I don't anticipate that we'll need additional teachers.
Well, that's awesome to hear. And my final, it's more directed actually towards Mr. Posca, but also your department would come in very importantly. Is there a way, just kind of the last few weeks, we've had passionate parents in here talking about communication. I think this, a lot of our college track students, they kind of go and do this research on their own naturally. Is there a way that we could better communicate this, maybe to 8th graders coming in when they're designing their schedules for all students across the board, and then also maybe a second time with rising sophomores? Because I think there's a lot of times you jump in your freshman year and you just take kind of what they give you based on everybody takes something similar. And then is there a plan? And then the sophomores, you're kind of, they give the kids a sheet of paper, they check the boxes. And is there a way that we could, from our guidance department, facilitate and communicate that better to families?
Absolutely. I think that's one of the conversations, and I was meeting with the high school principals about, this was the first step. If we're successful here, now we have additional work to do. I think Cheryl and Matt have kind of done a nice job of detailing why we want to go here. They alluded to the bubble for a couple of years as we get over the scheduling piece. They were very thoughtful in identifying the class of 2027 for this, so we could do exactly what you're referring to, is get the word out. But I think the bigger piece is really promoting some of those other pathways and opportunities that may be available to our students. As Matt said, some of those students already know they're going to go biology, physical science, chemistry. That's where they're going. That's what they want to do. But can we kind of interest some other students, or even some of those students, into some of those electives that are now being offered, and get them excited about some of those opportunities? I think you learn science by doing science. I think some of those CT opportunities avail themselves to that opportunity for our students. So hopefully by promoting that and demonstrating what those course offerings have can allow us to do that. But that is our job at the school level, to kind of get this message out in as many ways as possible, so that students and families are aware not only of the change, but of kind of the increased opportunities that are now available to them.
And I think that also goes along with, a lot of times you'll see teenagers just have an interest shift. So maybe they think they're interested in the biological sciences. It turns out that they're more interested in chemistry and physics than they thought. Once they realize that once they have the math proficiency, their confidence grows in those areas. So I think it's good. I really like what you guys are doing for the department and the direction you're headed, and it's great. I hope that you have, even before the class of 2027, people jumping on it. All right, so do you need a motion from us to move this forward? Okay. So hold on a second, let me see what I don't know if there's actually wording in here. Let me think about it for a second.
There is a recommendation to accept the course changes as presented.
Okay. So I move to approve the recommendations for science course changes as presented.
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All right, motion passes.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for being
And
here.
thank you, Cheryl and Matt,
Thank you
for
very
all
much.
the efforts.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so do we need, the next presentation is set up, or?
Yes, so Madam Chair, if it's okay with you, I'd like to actually go out of order so that Ann Altman can go home tonight. The work that the coaches have done over the last month is sort of at the end of our memo. Ann is here to talk a little bit about her experience at the Mass Q Conference. Give us 1 sec.
Okay, thank you.
I got you too.
Yeah, look at you. Huh.
Hello. Can you hear me all right? I am Ann Altman. I'm the technology instructional coach. I work with kindergarten through 8th grade in all of our buildings. Before I start talking too much about technology, are you all familiar with the Magic Treehouse series?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. The concept being Annie and Jack, 7 and 8 years old, go into the woods, find a tree house, and every time they go and visit the tree house, they pull out a book, and they wish, and they go anywhere, anytime, any place. And it's quite magical. And I like to use this as an analogy for what's available to our students. Of course, it's available to our students when they pick up books and read anything in the library, but it's also available through the internet in ways that are both very exciting and sometimes frightening. But I think it's our responsibility as the district, as the teachers, and as everybody who cares about kids, to think deeply about what that implies for them and what they need to learn in order to be able to handle anything in time and place that they might encounter on the internet, and to support them as they make that journey. So I did attend the fall conference of Massachusetts Curriculum Using Educators, which is one of, if not the largest, technology ed tech conference in New England. It was a lot of fun, and we had a few other staff people from here in the district, and we attended together. And it was an opportunity to go to several workshops and to talk about the direction that we're going here in Nashua with technology, especially since over the past few years, there have been enormous investments in upgrading what we have as far as technology here. We were at Patriot Place. I wanted to include a picture for you. It was a really beautiful couple of days. The weather was gorgeous, and it was super fun to be there. Digital learning is a big picture. And I think a lot of times somebody hears digital learning and their mind might go to typing and typing proficiency, or it might go to coding or digital citizenship, or computer programming, or flexible thinking, or design projects. I've got more up there. There are so many elements of digital learning that it really does start with us having a big picture perspective about what our students need and how we're going to meet it across the curriculum for our students and for our staff, as a matter of fact. So like I said, we've made some really big and intentional investments. We are reaching the point of being one-to-one with our devices across the district. And the devices don't work on their own. They don't change much of anything. They could just be really expensive bricks. We've also added applications, and applications plus devices are essential. And they don't work on their own, because kids don't just learn from applications and devices. So we also need to make sure that we continue to provide the professional learning to our teachers and our staff so that they are comfortable and confident supporting our students as they're going into the world online from our classrooms, They have some information for when they go online at home and for when they grow up and they use all of these devices in the world. We want them to be flexible, and we want them to be safe, and we want them to be confident. So one of my big takeaways was that we do need to be focusing on all three aspects, especially from the board perspective as we're looking about how we're making investments. We want to be strategic. One of the presentations that I really enjoyed was from the author Jed Stefanowitz. I don't know how to say his name, but that's his Twitter handle if you want to follow him. And he talked about these 3 domains of digital learning, which are wellness. And if you're anything like me, you have something digital that wakes you up in the morning and maybe reminds you that it's time to go to bed and maybe plays music while you do. There are numerous ways that we can be supporting teachers and students to use devices and applications for their own wellness. There's competency, which is back to good old-fashioned, can you type? Can you open up a document? If I send you a link, can you discern whether or not you should open that link? And so on. And there's creativity, which is when we get to the point where our students get to build, whether it's through coding, whether it's website design, or even just creating a presentation like the one that I made here on Canva tonight. It wasn't that hard, but it's very intimidating for some of our teachers. So how can we bridge that gap between what's available and our competency to actually use those devices that are available so that our kids can be creative and we can see that in their work? One of the things that really struck me, kind of floored me, was somebody said, I paraphrased here, but something to the effect of, we've been using this 21st century talk for a long time now. It's been 22 years of 21st century. So we really are focusing now, not on what's coming in the 21st century, but what is here, what is now, and what our students are being prepared for as they're going to be the learners that graduate from our schools and go into the world. So this is my last thought. Technology itself is only as valuable as its strategic and purposeful application. So what I'm asking you to do is just meditate, reflect on how you see our schools going forward to be purposeful with the application of all of these things that we've brought in the past few years.
Thank you so much. That was a fantastic presentation. I love your enthusiasm on the subject. Does anyone from the committee have anything to ask? No? Okay. And it's funny that you said the 21st century. We've been talking about it for 22 years now. Just last week, I was joking about that exact phrase with someone. So it's, I think it's time to observe something new. But thank you very much.
Thank you.
I just also want to emphasize one more time how incredibly valuable our coaches are. Our technology coach serves students from pre-K all the way through grade 8 and teachers as well.
Actually, I do have a follow-up question now that she kind of, it made me think of something. So you do not deliver the instruction to students. You see how technology can integrate into across the curriculum, and we can use it in classrooms? Is that your?
I wear a lot of hats. I sometimes come and work with teachers individually with their classes and actually get to teach students, which I always go home at the end of the day with a big smile if I got to do that, because I am an educator before I ever got interested in technology. But I also do provide professional development to the teachers and other kinds of support, even help desk tickets sometimes, along with the IT department. So I kind of do whatever I can.
Go wherever you're needed. Thank you. I appreciate it. Thanks for being here. Oh, I'm sorry. And one more. See, one question.
So since you mentioned professional development, I was just wondering how that works. Like, do the teachers just come to you and say, I don't know how to do this, can you show me? Or is it more formal than that?
Both.
Both, okay.
Like, I do present formal activities during our professional development days. I sometimes come to a staff meeting and present professional development, but I also do work in the coaching model that we've been training on recently, that we've been bringing into the district. And that would be a teacher coming and saying, hey, I'm ready to try more video in the classroom, more blended learning, blended instruction. And then I work with them individually and set up a plan, and over however long it takes, over a few weeks, help them to try something new and get very comfortable doing it.
What do you think, like, the percentages of our teachers that are feeling comfortable with these things now?
My guess would be just, I don't want to put a number on it, just because it means so many different things to so many people. Like I said, it's a really, really broad conversation. I do know that on the one hand, we're getting a lot more comfortable with everything, and on the other hand, we've been a little bit, I don't like the word too much, but a little bit traumatized by how much we've suddenly had to, and so that creates a new reluctance. So it's a little bit of both, but overall, we have more things available, and as long as they're available and they'll be available going forward, people are willing to learn.
Mm-hmm. So, inspiring for more questions. Do you have a lot of teachers that come to you and say, this is something that I would like to teach in the classroom? Is there an application that you can show me that would help me? Does that happen very often?
Yeah, that happens a lot. I also have teachers who come to me and say, oh, cool, technology sounds great. And then I help them kind of narrow it down and find a spot that would be a good entry point based on their background and what they already have been doing.
And I know that we've sort of been investigating it through Mr. Rodriguez and some other things, but are you also part of the team that is putting together the list of applications that we're using, whether we're using them efficiently or not, whether it's cost effective? Is that also part of?
Yep, I've been a part of that conversation for a few years now, so we did have that conversation a little bit more at MassQ, and I think we have some good things coming.
That's great. And I'm guessing probably the MassQ folks had ways to target those resources to make sure you're getting your most bang for your buck.
Yes.
So you got some good stuff from there. Okay. Thank you so much. We really enjoyed having you.
You're welcome. Have a great night.
I'm actually going to ask Ann to hang on for 1 second. Let's switch seats.
All right, we're going to do one more presentation shift.
We'll be super quick with this last couple of pieces here. But since I have Ann with me, I just wanted to talk about how we had many teachers who approached us because they found a resource, Vocabulary, which essentially delivers content through hip-hop videos. Teachers came to us and they said, we really want to be able to have this resource. And so I just want to kind of credit Ann with coming to district office, advocating for teachers, and then also helping me to be able to access these usage reports, which are in your memo. You can see, so we had some teachers who were accessing like a freemium sort of account through August, and then in September is when they were able to access the paid subscription where they had access to the entire video library. And, excuse me, just in the month of September from, again, pre-K to 8, we had teachers played 4,019 videos. One of the things that I want to call your attention to is that over on the left here, the videos are organized by Bloom's taxonomy level. And of course, there are, a number of videos that were played, trying to get this out of here, that were played that were at sort of like the lowest taxonomy level of remembering. But then we certainly have videos that are targeting a higher taxonomy level. And if I may, if you'll just indulge me, let me just play like a couple minutes of a Vocabulary video because everybody loves rap songs. So I had the pleasure of meeting when I was away at a conference last month. I had the pleasure of meeting a gentleman who is a teacher who wrote many of these raps, and this was one of them.
I'm the best rapper. Is that a fact or is that an opinion? Let's find out. I need a fact, that's something I can prove. All over the map, I know my fact is true. I have an opinion, that's something I believe. A feeling that I have about the world around me. I need a fact, that's something I can prove. All over the map, I know my fact is true. I have an opinion, that's something I believe. A feeling that I have about the world around me.
A fact is something you can prove.
All right, so I won't make you watch the whole video, but I think that what's important to acknowledge about these videos is, A, they're catchy. Kids, you know, they love the visuals. There's a lot of repetition going on. It's very simple language, but gets to whatever the topic is that teachers are trying to kind of solidify in a child's brain. The videos are wonderful when it comes to our English language learners. We know that, you know, delivering information through song helps kids to process and remember information a little bit better. So again, I just wanted to kind of credit Ann with making sure that she advocated for our teachers, and it's really interesting because you can see, well, you probably can't see from your vantage point, but we have topics that have been covered, from simple things like elements of a story, parts of speech, punctuation, to the Bill of Rights, to writing a paragraph, what that looks like, regions of the United States, continents, text features. We're kind of all over the map, no pun intended. I just said map. When it comes to the topics that teachers are accessing videos for, just quick, you know, 3 to 3.5 minute videos. The teachers I know, especially at the middle school level that use Google Classroom, they will just go ahead and link these videos right to Google Classroom. You'd be surprised. There are children who, I'm sure you've seen it, children who, when they're at home, like, they will geek out and watch these videos, and then you can hear them rapping. I had a student rapping about parts of speech, like, at recess, and I said, wow, that's kind of amazing, right? So I think it's important for the board and for the committee to know that when we are purchasing these applications, these are applications that teachers are advocating for, and they're certainly using them, and we're hopeful that we can see a return on our investment with regard to student understanding of the topics that are covered. Want to add anything?
No, thank you.
Okay.
Well, thank you. I love to see this. It's really interesting that originally we had thought this was going to be targeted towards the language arts department, but it's being used a lot by the social studies department, which I think is great. I mean, especially for, you know, learning states and capitals and all those kind of fun things that are good to memorize. And I don't know, I think this is a really fun app, and I'm glad that it's clearly being used, so that's great to see.
Yeah. The other thing I just want to highlight really quickly is current events. So every week, Vocabulary has sort of what they call a week in wrap, and it's a closeout of all of the major events that have happened. And it's good for kids to know what's going on in the world. It's important for them. So it's apparent that, you know, we've had 627 hits on the week in wrap, current events options. So it's great that kids are learning about what's happening.
All right. Thank you very much.
I have a question. I noticed that the schools, like Broad Street, is using it so much, and some of the other schools aren't quite as much. Do you have any thoughts as to why?
Well, so what I would say is probably the teachers who are using it the most are using it because they know about vocabulary. They've probably been using it for a while. I know I've been using it since probably 2010, 2011. The other thing is that in looking at some of these schools that really utilize the program more, there are some different programs in different schools. And so this might be one way to help break down some information for students in a way that feels comfortable in terms of instructional delivery. Great. Thank you. All right, so
while we're talking about that, is there anything we'd like to mention about Zern?
yeah, I'll just pop on this really quickly. So Zern is a supplement. Thanks, Ann. Zern is a supplement to our core math program, Eureka. What we do is we have students access Zern, which aligns directly and exactly with our lessons in our core math curriculum. Zern, we can program Zern so that it can target specifically students' unfinished learning, so that if we have a student who is accessing grade level content, and then we identify through assessment, maybe just formative assessment, that students need to have some extra practice, we can actually program Zern for that particular student to intentionally target that unfinished learning, and/or typically what we use Zern for is extra practice. Once students are introduced to a concept, then we give them practice on Zern. We also use Zern for some of our assessments. It's sort of quick and easy for teachers, but it also feels comfortable for students because we want to get them used to taking assessments online, like to get them ready for New Hampshire SAS, certainly. But what we are noticing is that students who log into, and we actually have quite a high percentage of our students who are logging into Zern consistently, we notice that students who log in more, and this obviously makes sense, students who log in more and spend more time on Zern then go ahead and they complete more lessons on Zern, which means that in order to complete the lesson, they have to actually demonstrate proficiency. If a student attempts a problem or a concept and they're not successful and not able to demonstrate proficiency, then Zern will actually stop them, and a message will be prompted that basically says, it looks like you're having some trouble. So before we have you move on, there are resources that students can access, like a tutorial video. There are like graphics that students can kind of follow that might be able to help them. And then certainly when students are on Zern, the goal is for teachers to be circulating around the classroom so that if a student is stuck, a teacher can come over and offer assistance. But sometimes we want, well, not sometimes, we want kids to engage in a productive struggle. So before a teacher comes over and rescues a student and says, hey, it looks like you might need to start here, we want students to be able to look at videos and look at graphics and try to figure out if they can move to the next step.
Anyone have any questions about the Zern application? All right, well, I'm glad to see some positive data on how effective it is. That's really great.
Great. All right, and so last but not least is just a high-level overview. Oh, boy. Looks different on your screen. Just a high-level overview of our New Hampshire SAS data. I guess I'll just scroll down, it's okay. So specifically, I am zooming in. I was trying to capture it all in one space. Thanks, Jimmy. What's that? Well, I was going to zoom out, and I was zooming in. Sorry, we'll just scroll down. It's fine. So here is a high-level overview of our New Hampshire SAS data. The New Hampshire SAS was administered in the spring of this year in 2022. One thing that I do want to point out is that, so this data is obviously very important to us. This is our state accountability data, okay? I do want to point out the fact that there is an opt-out option that is available to families, and that was true in the spring of 2022. So our participation for the New Hampshire SAS was not what we would like it to be, because what we want to be able to do is have a sample size that's representative of all of our students. There was a significant percentage of students who did not take the assessment, so I want to make sure that I highlight that. This is one data point that helps to inform our instruction and helps us to evaluate our curriculum and also evaluate our instructional practices. But again, I just want to make sure that I offer that information about the fact that not all of our students did participate in grades 3 through 8 and then again in grade 11. So what we'd like to see is students demonstrating proficiency and/or sort of exemplary performance. Proficiency is level 3, and then exemplary would be, or a distinction I should say, would be level 4. So we want to see our students in the 3 and 4 category. What you'll see over all the way on the right-hand side is the total percentage of students who demonstrated proficiency in a specific grade level. You can see that, I mean, certainly we know that we have some work to do when it comes to ELA. In third grade, this is the first grade that students are actually taking the New Hampshire SAS. They've never actually seen the SAS before this grade. So we expect performance to be, I guess, sort of mediocre. It's, again, their first sort of introduction to this type of assessment. But what we certainly want to see is the performance to be increasing, or the proficiency to be increasing in subsequent grade levels. So you can see in ELA, in third grade, we have a total of 35% of our students overall in grade 3 who demonstrated proficiency in the spring. In grade 4, 35%. In grade 5, 44%. And then we have similar sort of performance in the subsequent grade levels. Excuse me. I think I lost connection for a second. So some of the things that we're doing, the first thing I want to say is we want to encourage more of our students to take the New Hampshire SAS in the spring of 2023. And the reason why we want to do that is because we want to have some valid data that we can use to help see where our students are at. We'd like to have a much larger sample size, so that's one thing that I really want to encourage. And one of the things that I want our families to know is that if students are not participating in taking this assessment, then that impacts our accountability rating with the state. The state wants to see a significant number of our students actually participate in this assessment, and if our students do not participate, especially those in particular subgroups, then that impacts our accountability rating with the state. And so we have a couple of schools that have previously been identified as sort of schools that are on a watch list based on the performance, but also based on the participation. So if we could increase participation and encourage families to have their kids take this test, it would be beneficial for our district as a whole, and it would be more representative of what all of our students are able to do, because we'd have a larger sample size. But again, some of the things that we're doing to increase proficiency in ELA include, at the elementary level, include teaching students foundational literacy skills. We know that the ability to be able to decode text, coupled with knowledge about the world and also expansive vocabulary, leads to higher reading comprehension. The district for a long time did not have a explicit systematic phonics program. We do have that now, which is Foundations, and that's a wonderful thing. Our teachers have been implementing Foundations with fidelity, and we are seeing our students in the earlier grades reap the benefits of that type of instruction. We also consequently are seeing students in upper grades, more in the middle school, that did not have access to systematic phonics instruction. We're seeing some gaps in their learning, and we want to make sure that that does not continue. So the fact that the district did bring Foundations to Nashua is a really positive thing for our students. Additionally, we noticed that students were lacking in the area of phonemic awareness, so the district brought in Hegarty. And so again, coupled with Hegarty, coupled with our phonics program, has proven to benefit our students greatly. The other thing that we're doing right now is we just passed a pretty large amount of money to be able to purchase decodable text so that students can practice sound and letter patterns that have been previously taught, and that is something that we are just sort of rolling out this year. I'm happy that our teachers have very much advocated for the decodable readers, and so we expect to see, especially at the lower grade levels, the percentage of students who are proficient to increase. The last thing that we're doing, I can say specifically at the elementary level, is we are making sure that complex texts are at the center of all ELA instruction. It's really important for students to be able to access sophisticated text that is at their grade level, and students need to be taught how to be able to access the text, even if the texts are a little bit more sophisticated than what we might have previously exposed students to. We also do have texts that are at students' reading level, where they're able to kind of read pretty comfortably. We expose students to texts at their level just so that they can practice reading comprehension strategies, but we don't want to limit their access to more sophisticated text. So that's something that we're being really intentional about, is making sure that complex texts are always accessible to students and always at the center of ELA instruction. I can say specifically for the middle school level, when it comes to ELA instruction, a lot of work was performed over the summer, and the work continues to make sure that we have updated novel studies for students that are not only culturally relevant, but also that are a little bit more sophisticated than what students have been exposed to for a long time. We have tasks now for students that are much more robust and much more aligned to the Common Core and the expectations of the Common Core. And then the last thing that I can say about ELA and what we're doing to improve proficiency and performance is we have Teaching and Learning Alliance working with our students and our teachers from pre-K all the way through grade 8. As we've discussed previously, we have these lab sites where the goal is for the lab teachers to be able to get to a place where they feel comfortable opening up their classrooms to share best practices with teachers across the district and become the models for exemplary ELA instruction across our district. At the elementary level, well, at the preschool level, all of the preschool programs are participating. And then at the elementary level, we have 8 out of our 12 elementary schools are participating, and then teachers at all 3 middle schools are participating.
Does anyone have any questions? Anything to add?
I do. So I just wanted to know, what is the percentage of kids that are not taking the SAS?
At the top of my head, I could not tell you. I will tell you that the participation is definitely less than 50%.
Oh my goodness, that's very low. Is it? Does it vary from school to school and from age level to age level? Like, is there one particular elementary school, say, that doesn't participate hardly at all?
I would have to get back to you on that, but I can say I couldn't pinpoint which school, but it definitely does vary from school to school, for sure.
Okay.
And one thing I want to talk about too is, it does become an equity issue, because if we have parents who do have information about an opt-out option, or parents who, have a greater ability to be able to advocate for their children, they might exempt their students from this type of an assessment. And then students whose parents maybe don't have access to the information, or maybe don't speak English, and they're not. The information is not as readily available to them. Those students become the only students who take our assessment. And I say that with a little bit of hyperbole, but it, again, becomes an equity issue. What we want to see is a representation of all of our students, so that when we do have gaps in our instructional practices, we're able to isolate them and then target the students who actually need us to improve our instruction for them specifically. Right now, we use this data. It's important to us, but again, we'd like to see kind of what all of our students are able to do. We know that we have work to do. We just want to make sure it's the right work for all of our kids.
I think it would be really cool if we could see like the breakdown of performance across the different schools, and then the breakdown of the performance of who's participating and who's not. And if certain schools are performing pretty badly and their kids aren't participating, then we know exactly what we need to do to improve it right there.
So one of the things, so again, and I just want to be careful about the performance, it's, that the data is only so valid because we only have a certain there are only some students who are participating. So I just want to be careful about kind of calling out individual school performance, just because, the individual school performance certainly is indicative of what we're doing in our classrooms, but also it might not be totally indicative of what's happening in our classroom because maybe only some students are actually participating. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, well, it seems if it's that low, the amount of kids that are taking it, then that's a communication issue that we really need to work on because, the state's going to look at this and think a lot, not see all the great improvements that have been made in the district and all the great work that everyone's doing. And you said that some schools to be put on a watch list because of this?
So that is what can certainly happen. It's what's happened in the district in the past, and then we have embargoed data, but once that data becomes public, then we'll see kind of where our schools rank.
So I think you have a really valid point, Ms. Lamphere. I think it is important to look at schools with low participation and schools that, because I think this, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, this does affect our Title I funding and that kind of thing, and where schools are on that. So, and I would disagree with you that I think it makes a difference between, it's not calling out schools, but I think it is relevant to have that information. And I would like to see that maybe presented next month or whenever you have the information broken down by the school, because then we can do, I think I agree with you. We can look at schools that could be struggling because we're not providing the right supports. If we look at both the number of students that are taking it and also the number of schools that are underperforming, we can also look and see if only 10 or 20% of the students at that school, then we need to make an effort as administrators and as board members to advocate to those parents to make them understand how important it is to their school reputation, I guess,
Right.
to keep the numbers up. So I do think that it actually is not so much, it shouldn't be looked at as a punitive thing, but more as a way to make sure we're targeting our communication and our funding support to the right places.
One thing that Mrs. Lamphere said that really spoke to me is you talked about being able to celebrate our successes, and I think that's what we have to do around this assessment. It seems, this tedious undertaking for students and staff, but I don't see it that way. I see this as a way to say, hey, look what we've done all year long. Let's show you what we know. And we certainly know that our teachers and our students are working really, really hard all year long. We want to be able to demonstrate kind of the fruits of all of that labor. So I think that's a great idea, and I think that that's the narrative that we kind of have to shift.
Well, I think it would be cool if, next time the test is taken, if we could, put out a lot of stuff saying, we're going to improve our test scores, and this is going to be great, and Nashua is going to win, and, that kind of thing, to make it, a positive thing, instead of, some parents might think that taking a test like this is stressful for their kids, and that there's no harm to having their kids not take the test when there actually is. So if they can know some of the benefits and feel good about taking it, it might help to improve it.
I agree. I mean, it would be amazing if next fall we see all of these numbers jump 10%. I mean, we're not exactly where we want to be yet, but that's a significant increase,
Definitely. Like I said, I think we just have to shift the narrative for sure. I will say that I am on the State Accountability Task Force, and I have tried to advocate to have the opt-out option removed because I don't think that it's fair to our teachers and to our students as a whole. That's not something that is happening yet, but I'm going to continue to advocate every single month.
Is there a lot of kids across the state who don't take it?
Yes.
So it must be a big issue for a lot of schools.
It certainly is. It's not just a Nashua issue. It's across the entire state, but also across the country. So, okay, so just really quickly, when it comes to math, I mean, everybody can see what our math proficiency looks like. What we've been doing is we've been working really, really hard with Megan Duprat and Beth Wheeler, our two instructional coaches at the elementary level. So Anna alluded to it earlier. All of our coaches have undergone a very extensive training to really learn what it's like to be a coach and to go through these coaching cycles with teachers. And so Beth and Megan have been working, I want to say, with 10 teachers apiece right now, and they are going through these coaching cycles, and then once they're done, they'll move on to the next 10. They have been going into classrooms and modeling exemplary instruction. We have evidence-based walkthrough protocols where we break down the instruction and really talk about all of the best practices that we see that we want to continue, and then we provide feedback about how we can make instruction better. We call it like even better ifs. There are always one or two even better. It would be even better if you make these subtle shifts, and instruction will be so much better. And so in addition to that, we're working with a math consultant, Carolyn Worster. Carolyn is pretty much a famous math guru in the state of New Hampshire. She has been able to work with our teachers at the elementary level to break down our Eureka math lessons so that they're not so scripted and formulaic, and she then converts sort of like the lessons into super engaging activities for students that target all of the same content, but kids are engaged in the work. One of the things that we've been trying to do in math is move away from the, I do, we do, you do sort of model where the teacher shows a problem and then walks kids through, these are the steps to solve it. Now you are all gonna practice, we're gonna do it together, and then we have independent practice. We wanna move away from that. We wanna we want to expose kids to new learning the second they come into our classrooms, but new learning that allows them to apply what they've learned previously, and then also have them actively participate and talk about math. And so that's some of the work that we're doing at the elementary level, which is really exciting. I'm also pleased to share that Mr. Posca and I have been collaborating with the middle school curriculum leads, and we are bringing Carolyn into the middle school as well. Krista Burrell, who was previously our math coach at the middle school level, she brought in a book study at the middle school level called Building Thinking Classrooms. And Building Thinking Classrooms really has to do with, again, kids engaging in the work and sort of shifting the lift from the teachers doing most of the talking and working to the students doing most of the talking and working. And so that perfectly aligns with what we're doing at the elementary schools, because we're all reading Building Thinking Classrooms, and we're all employing those instructional practices. So I've seen a lot of great work happening at the middle school, and it's going to be great for it to, that work to expand, because we're bringing Carolyn in to work with those teachers as well. She's only one person, but the great thing is that our goal is that we build capacity in our classrooms, and then our teachers become the experts and share the information. I can say that Michelle Nato, specifically at Bicentennial, 5th grade teacher, she had some things that she wanted to work on. We brought Carolyn in. Beth Wheeler worked with her pretty extensively, and now her classroom is opened up for people to come and see. It's pretty awesome.
I'm so glad that you're working so hard to build capacity and teaching the new teaching models. I think that's fantastic. And I know that you've had a lot of professional development that could possibly even be overwhelming over the last several months. But I'm actually curious how, when you have teachers who have mastered these new practices, we've expanded the number of PLC hours available, or minutes per week. Mm-hmm. Are teachers finding that helpful in sharing these kind of, is that going on in these kind of conversations, like sharing these kind of practices?
Yes, so all of our principals have established 45-day goals, and certainly for most of our principals, the work that is going on during PLC time, it has become part of their 45-day goals. I can say that we had 3 principals present at an all-admin meeting last Monday, which basically consists of our entire administrative team across the district, so it's like 70-plus people. We had 3 principals share about their 45-day goals, and then also kind of all of the positive things that they've seen come out of the work that they did during the first 45 days of school. And all of them talked about the PLC work and how incredibly productive PLCs have been. I can say that Dr. Andrade has really put an emphasis on PLCs. You know, we all have the 4 questions, everybody keeps seeing them, but those questions, it seems so rudimentary. We've been hearing about them forever. Like, what do we want kids to learn? How do we know when they've learned it? Those questions have been around forever, but they really get to the core of what we're doing. So yeah, I mean, all of this work that we're doing in the classrooms, professional development, all of that starts to surface during the PLC times. And then one thing that Ann Altman talked about when she was here is the fact that she does deliver professional development during faculty meetings. We've had teachers and principals request that our coaches join them at the faculty meetings so that A, they can share the work that's being done, or B, when a best practice is sort of revealed during a principal's observation of a teacher, the principal wants to highlight that and show the whole staff. And so those things are happening all across the district. I can say specifically at the elementary level because I see it and I hear about it and we talk about it all the time, but I also know that Mr. Posca and the middle school principals are doing the same, and then certainly at the high school as well.
Good. I'm really glad to hear that the extra time together as professional learners is panning out and giving people opportunities to have these deep conversations. Anything else to add?
No, the only other thing I just wanted to add really quickly is, so when it comes to science, as everybody knows, we've been rolling out Amplify Science. Amplify Science has been around at the middle school level for the last 3 years. Well, at the end of this year, we'll complete the 3rd year. We implemented grade 5 last year, full implementation last year, grade 4 as well, and so we're hoping to keep implementing at the previous grade level so that when students do get to grade 5 and then grade 8 during these testing grades, they're going to be fully ready, not just to demonstrate proficiency on the test, but because we want students to have a deep understanding of science concepts.
All right. Anyone from the committee have any questions? No? All right. Well, thank you so much, Dr. Sarfty. This has been great things moving the district forward this evening. I guess, anything else to present before we adjourn? All right. I'm looking for a motion.
I'll make the motion.
All right. Do you move to adjourn?
Oh, God. Yes, please let us adjourn.
All right.
So moved.
All right. So we've got a second from Mr. Claffey. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. We are adjourned at 7:22. We'll see you next month.